Hello and welcome to our interview. My name is Leanne Mallory. I'm the founder and CEO of Leading in Motion, where we specialize in helping business leaders connect with the wisdom of their bodies so they and their organizations can thrive. In just a moment, we'll begin our interview, but first, a few words on why we're here. This interview is part of a larger project called the Corporate Dance Maven, where we're supporting dancers and teachers of dance to break into the corporate market. Our goal is to help you figure out how to do the difficult and rewarding work of teaching dance in a business context. Whether you're currently teaching dance in companies or you see yourself as a total novice, whether you're an internal trainer or an external trying to break into that world, our aim is that this program helps you take your work to the next level. Today we'll be chatting with Joseph Roevens. I met Joseph a month ago at a conference in Amsterdam where he taught a session entitled The Leadership Tango. He was using tango as a metaphor for good leadership and good followership. Joseph has been teaching dance for he's been dancing for about 16 years, and he's been teaching at university in the corporate consulting and management training spaces for about 20 years. He lectures on management and cross-cultural management at the University of Breda in the south part of the Netherlands. Joseph, welcome, and we'd love you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, nice to hear you, Leanne. And maybe I'll tell briefly the story of how the two things matched. So I've been teaching and lecturing management and change management for about 20 years. And about 9 years ago, I was at a summer program in Germany, in Bremerhaven, where we were working on managing change with students. Average age was anything between 20 and 45. People from Russia, from Uzbekistan, from China, from Poland, from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Spain, from Colombia. So people from all over the place. And there was a moment that we noticed there wasn't too much team cohesion. So the director asked me, he said, well, I know your hobby is tango. Why don't you do something with our students? And so we had an evening. I put on some tango music, and we started to dance, do some very simple movements of moving and following, of leading and following. And what I noticed is that after about 10 minutes, everybody was dancing with everybody. Everybody was engaged with each other. So even cross-cultural stereotypes, like, for example, Chinese men would not invite a Polish woman to dance. That's not true. They do. Given the appropriate context. So it started as an icebreaker, and then actually the director asked me to do this again, and the year after again I was asked to do those kinds of sessions. And then I slowly started to introduce it also to university students to teach them about good leadership and good followership. And one of the things that I found out is that when traditionally students get lectures, which again are useful. Traditionally, they do some role plays, or they fill out Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership model, all those things. What I noticed is the moment they actually engage in real leading and following, even if it is for the dance movement, they sort of get it. They sort of start really embodying, to use also a word that we share, embodying what it means to really be a good leader with a particular person, and also what it means to be a good follower with a particular person. So I'm kind of fast forwarding to about 3 years ago, when some of my colleagues, including the dean of our university, said, well, we hear tango music playing once in a while, and we hear things from students that are quite excited. What are you doing? So I kind of wrote an academic paper saying, well, I'm doing this, and it actually fits within multiple intelligence teaching, and gets people connected and everything. And so about 3 or 2 years ago, the dean said, well, why don't we promote this? And actually, it's part of the curriculum. Other colleagues are involved in it, and please go around to our partner universities in the world, go around to conferences, and sort of spread the message. And that's also how the two of us ended up in Amsterdam at the Hotel Management School The Hague. This one here is the Hotel Management School Breda. But so we met one of the universities we work with, And it's part of that, of sharing that message. And also I notice now there's more and more people daring to say, well, education needs an embodied part to really connect the knowledge.
I love it.
That's a bit
I think my favorite part of your story is when people hear the music and they say, "What are you doing?" I get that a lot as well.
Exactly.
But it's kind of this, "What are you doing?" Because I'm sort of wishing I was doing that too. Or, it's like they can feel the energy of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell me just a little bit more about, because I totally agree with you that being able to embody something versus just receiving the information or studying this, these top 10 things you should do to be a good leader, there's always kind of that, here's what you should do, but then actually doing it. Tell me a bit more about when you lead your sessions, why that makes a difference. Like what happens in the context of doing it that is more than just what they're getting when they're reading about it or talking about it with their classmates.
Okay. So a few things that happen is that most of the time the students have had some of the theory in the lecture a week or two before. So they've had that. Then when they come to the session, especially if it's Dutch students, and Dutch students tend to be very direct, as you may have noticed, they kind of laugh. They think, okay, we're gonna do some dancing, nothing serious. After about 5 minutes, when they start to really do an exercise with a partner, and they start to also notice how you really have to connect with the other person on a non-verbal level. Because in the beginning they always talk because they feel a bit embarrassed or uncomfortable. But when I tell them this is a non-verbal exercise and you need to connect in a non-verbal way, some really get it. Like they make the connection and they say, wow, if I connect with another person and it's only with that person, because when I dance with somebody else, it's again something new, then I have to be very careful in how I lead this person. If I, for example, have the leading role, or very careful to follow. And then they start to realize this is very subtle stuff. This is very subtle stuff. Leading means, okay, you need to know what you're doing. But also you need to have care for the other person. Because in a tango, if you don't care for the other person, you will step on her feet or on his feet, or you will, bump into a wall, which you don't want to happen. So I've noticed over and over again that students after, and also professionals after about 5 or 10 minutes, they realize this is serious. Yeah. So we need to be focused. We need to be mindful. We need to be present. And after each exercise, we do about, when I have an hour, it's about 4 exercises. When I have 2 hours, ideally, I can go up to 5 or 6. After each exercise, we also discuss. Okay. So I would ask a general question like, okay, with this person, did you prefer leading or following? Why? Mm-hmm. And then, okay, how would you describe the leadership style of this person? And can you even connect it to some of the models so they will almost automatically throw in Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership, which they got for me in the lecture. And so by actually experiencing it and doing it, I've noticed afterwards, after the workshop, they seem to have a better grasp on the subtlety of leading and following.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, one of the things I was going to ask is how do you build relevancy? And it sounds like from what you said that part of how you do it is really in the debrief after, by asking the question, how does this relate to your leadership practice or what you're learning or what you need to do in the context of leadership? Is that right?
Exactly. And what I've also noticed is, over the years, that the exercises I've developed now, they match. You need to build it up slowly and comfortably, so that also people know. And I actually say at the beginning of the class, this is not a dance class. This is actually a management workshop or leadership followership workshop. And yes, there is tango music, but the exercises are actually at such a basic level of leading and following that only at exercise 6 we do something tango-ish. But I've noticed that takes away at least some of the maybe pressure, but also some of the prejudices people have when they think, oh, I'm going into a dance class. And I think some of our colleagues listening to this recording may have that thing to overcome. You know, a dance teacher teaching management is another story than a management teacher using dance to teach management. Yeah.
Good point.
So that's something you need to address because you're talking to an audience that's used. But there's one good news is often often people are used to boring management workshops. So this is actually an exciting thing that we're doing. So there we have an advantage.
So say just a little bit more about the very beginning in your setup. So I heard you say, you know, this is not a dance class, this is a management workshop. How else do you build relevancy or get them interested in going with you at the very beginning where they're open to really seeing it as more than just a dance class?
Okay, it depends on the audience. If it is a university audience at the bachelor student level, then when they know I'm a professor, that's kind of a start. Yeah, that's enough. When I worked at Zappos, for example, last year, there they know, okay, I'm a management author. I've written about change management and disruptive change, so I know my stuff. And I make them feel comfortable that we're using dance moves and continuously reflecting to what they know in the workplace also. So that I've noticed helps us, you know, building, to use a fancy word, rapport with where the client's at. And I would say, you know, stay close to what you're familiar with. So if the teacher herself or himself is closer to particular parts of body movement, well, okay, then say that you're bringing that. You know, don't promise things you cannot bring. But I've noticed over the years that establishes it, and that also, in a way, how can I say? I mean, in Belgium and in the Netherlands, there's a lot of Argentinian tango teachers of the dance itself. So now that they know that I'm not saying that I'm a dance teacher, but I'm a management teacher, they feel comfortable sharing information with me because I'll go in when it's related to management and leadership, and they go in when it's only, and I'm saying this in a respectful way, but it's when it's only the dance and the beauty of the dance.
Beautiful. One of the things I love is that you really, you highlight how talking from your expertise makes a difference. And actually in one of the other interviews with John Michael Schurth that we did recently, he was also kind of pointing to that any dancer, even if you're not, you know, also have management as part of what you do, that you have these expertises or these things you're really good at. Like myself, I'm really good at following. I'm not so great at leading in a dance context, like as a dance teacher, as a dancer. And so that in and of itself could be a whole workshop on excellent followership if you're great at that as a dancer. So
Absolutely.
I like the idea of stick with what you're good at or where your expertise is, and then ask the question, well, how is this relevant to somebody in a business context, for example?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say, sorry, and what I've also noticed is keep the exercises simple and connected to what they know. I actually passed around, you had a 6-minute workout. It's one of your videos. I passed it around our school, and some of our colleagues did the exercises because they loved the metaphors you use, you know, like reaching your goal by grabbing the door of opportunity. That's stuff that connects with people. You know, talk their language, and they will also remember that.
Totally. And thanks for sending that around.
You're welcome.
There's something you said earlier about if they know they're coming to a dance class, that could be an edgy thing. And actually, when I did my master's thesis, I interviewed folks, and the last question I asked was, why is dance so edgy? But I'm curious what you would say. So if you're in a business context, like it's almost like martial arts is one thing, like movement is something, but like dance, that's a bit of a final frontier. That's at least what I see. Do you share that? Do you see that? And why do you think it's so edgy for people, if so?
Well, again, if I take it also from a cross-cultural perspective, there still seems to be the label, and especially I would say for non-Latin American men, that would be really the exception.
Yes, totally.
But European men, and again, I'm now generalizing, okay, martial arts, it's cool because it's tough, because it's masculine. Dance becomes a bit feminine, which may scare them.
Mm.
or many men also have the idea of themselves that they have no sense of rhythm. I would disagree, but it happens very often when I teach in Germany, for example, that my German colleagues, when I mention to them, and let's say my colleagues are in their 40s or 50s, and I mention dance, they say, well, the last time I danced was during my wedding,
Mm.
when I took classes with my wife, and since then, I'm not doing this anymore. So it's a bit of a stretch, but some things that help. One is I tell them if it's about movement and leading and following. And then I've actually had German, Russian, and even British men, go on the dance floor. I'm saying even because it's a lot easier with Spanish, Italian, and definitely Latin American, because for them, dance is more in their culture as a way of expressing who they are. With I know what's most funny, but the British actually being the least willing to show that they dance, except when they had lots of alcohol in them. I mean, it's stereotypical, but I've noticed it. Another thing that helps, and the tango, one of the nice things about the tango, it does have a macho-ish vibe around it.
Okay.
And when you observe, and even when non-dancing men observe a good Argentinian tango dancer, they say, wow, this person is extremely skilled, compared to some other dances which take a little bit less skill, I would say. I mean, I love salsa also, but it's kind of easier to learn. But tango takes a lot of practice before you even dare to go on a dance floor and do something. It takes almost a year of intense practice. So that sort of helps, but especially mentioning that it's only about movement and anybody can do it. And I can show pictures of managers that also thought they had two left legs, but could still did the exercises.
Awesome.
And maybe the other thing is also get if their partner, either if they are straight or gay, doesn't matter, but else get their partner involved. There's always one of them who's interested in dance, and let them just drag along the one who's hesitating.
Well spoken. One of the things that I think our audience is really interested in is how do we get started? And I loved, you actually told your story a bit, that someone said, hey, can we do something? And it was a bit of an icebreaker at first. And actually I relate to that in my own story, that, we need 5 minutes of something, or we need, an hour of something to just get people engaged. And then over time, it really evolved into something that was more of a methodology, or that had more meat on the bones. Say a little bit about that transition from icebreaker, we did this once, it was quick, it was fun, to it's really a methodology that people can see as, or that your client, let's say, can see as something that's adding more value than just let's have fun and get people moving.
Exactly. Well, my process also was that, the questions were raised as I was doing the work. So I ended up writing, because I'm also a teacher, so I have educational experience for 20 years. And I wrote a paper, I think about 2 years ago, which is also online, anybody can download it, where I basically say, if you use the 3 schools of pedagogy, behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, you can actually explain why this is good teaching, why this makes sense, why people learn more effectively with this than if they just had a fill out the questionnaire, that's your leadership style, goodbye and good luck. Yeah. Or the other extreme, build a raft with your team, and at the end of the raft building will tell you what kind of leader or follower you were. Fine stuff, but I wrote a paper saying, and quite detailed, why this gives good transfer, why this is good learning. So I would suggest colleagues, you can read the paper, you can use it to tell your clients, like, this actually works scientifically. There's a base for this. Yeah, there's a base for this. And in addition to that, that's on one of the videos I have on YouTube, where I use Howard Gardner's work at Harvard on multiple intelligences. Now, Gardner's been around since the 80s or late 70s, so it's not something new. And many good educators and pedagogues know of his work. Unfortunately, still in Europe, it's not the dominant way of teaching, but it's changing. There's more and more people realizing musical intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, introspection, all these intelligences that he talks about. When you teach in that format, it's just more effectively. It's much more effective, sorry, much more effective. So I would also tell other trainers of this material, give your client some examples of the science behind it or some of the figures behind it of companies where it works, because neurologically there's a lot of brain research that shows when we also use our physical bodies while we learn, we just learn so much more and we remember a lot longer. So I recently had actually 2 days ago, a Russian student that studies here wrote her bachelor thesis on leadership tango and how it can reduce employee turnover in the hotel industry. Because we have an industry with a minimum of 60, a maximum of 300% turnover rate, so it's really very bad. And part of it has to do with the fact that managers, leaders in the hotel industry are not concerned enough about their people. And when she interviewed people who did leadership tango, actually that works a lot on connection and even physical connection between two people. So, and while she was doing her bachelor thesis in defense, there were 2 hotelier managers from 2 top hotels in Amsterdam. And both of them were like this going, wow, we need this thing because we're also facing that issue, employee turnover and people not being motivated. So they also realized that the kind of trainings we offer is working because the other stuff is not working so well.
Right. So part of the, I was going to ask you about business case, and it sounds like really there's an argument for reducing turnover, for improving leadership skills beyond simply this is a fun thing to do, or it's a good way to learn. So there's kind of layers that you're pointing to. Mm-hmm. What would you, I could talk about this with you all day, and I look forward to talking about it with you more ongoingly. Just for the sake of moving towards the end of our interview for now, though, what would you say to someone who wants to start getting their foot in the door? How would you suggest that they start in terms of first couple steps?
Oops, it depends, where they're at. Well, I think you can bring this material as an icebreaker. You can bring it for team building, leading and following, even stress reduction, getting connected to each other, and also for a way of opening up, also for diversity issues. For example, my friend and colleague Ray Batchelor in the United Kingdom, he works with the hearing impaired and deaf people. So working on inclusion of people that with a hearing impediment. So using dance for that. He's working with soccer teams, which you would call it soccer also in the US. Soccer teams in Britain to deal with prejudice, also prejudice against homosexuals. And Ray Batchelor actually also founded a conference in Paris called the Queer Tango Salon, where we're actually using tango to show that leadership can be women leading men, women leading women, men leading men. So it's not the classical macho Argentinian thing. So what I'm trying to say, Leanne, is that actually there's so many ways for dance teachers to get into the corporate world with one of those hooks. Right. Wherever they need help, where you think, well, wait a minute, using our bodies will help. Well, propose it to them. And again, I mean, I don't know what the US situation is, but some of the work you can do pro bono, or you do a pro bono half an hour introduction and see how they take it. And then afterwards you could start charging it when you do more. So those are all sorts of formulas you can use for that.
Nice. And what was the hook or what was the angle that got you into Zappos, Joseph?
Well, Zappos was going through a major change since last year. And I read about them And I basically sent an email straight to the CEO saying, I think I've got some ideas I would like to, if you want, like, I could do a Skype with you. And actually after the Skype, they or the HR person actually said, would you be willing to come over? So that's how it happened. And I also said, wow, I didn't know things could happen that smoothly. But they sometimes do. You just have to, I guess, be gutsy.
Beautiful. So having the guts to reach out and say, I see something, you know, can I help you with that? Or I can, you offered some advice pro bono.
Pro bono, because I didn't even, I mean, I didn't do this actually to generate business or anything. I just thought, like, oh my God, they're going through this change and I have something worthwhile to say. That's what I did.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I so appreciate this conversation. I'd love to give you just a, you know, any closing thoughts, summary thoughts, or again, anything you want to offer as words of advice to someone trying to get started.
Well, you know, let's go out there and teach dance in the business world. Let's do that. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if people want to get a hold of the paper that you mentioned or follow you online, what's the best way to track you?
Well, if in Google they just type in my name, Joseph Roevens, and then it's called Embodied Leadership with Tango or Leadership Tango, they come to a website of academia where my paper is just downloadable. So they find it quite easy. It's quite easy to find.
Wonderful. Thank you. And to those who are listening at home and want to continue following us at the Corporate Dance Maven, you can find us on Facebook, corporatedancemaven.com. We have some links there, and I look forward to speaking to you all more or getting in touch with you down the road. Thank you.